Welcome to the Smarter Science of Slim, the scientifically proven program where you eat more and exercise less to burn fat and boost health.
Eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. I am so ready for that.
Hey everybody, Jonathan Bailor back with another bonus Smarter Science of Slim show. Very excited about today's show because I am lucky enough to be holding in my hand maybe one of the most colorful and visually appealing books I have potentially ever seen in my entire life. It is just a wonderful, delightful resource to losing body fat and living primally and just all this. If you ever thought that sane eating or primal eating or whole food eating is boring or bland, yeah, you need to check out this book because I tell you what, I haven't eaten breakfast yet, and that's kind of a problem because I'm flipping through this book, which is called the Paleo Primer by our guests Keris Marsden and Matt Whitmore. And I tell you, my taste buds are salivating. So Keris Marsden and Matt Whitmore, welcome to the show.
Hey.
Thanks for having us, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Well, Keris and Matt, you've written this book called The Paleo Primer. But before we get into that, and forgive my ignorance here, you guys seem to be, at least in the U.S., I know you're based out of the U.K., in the U.S., you're kind of new to the paleo and primal and whole foods scene, at least in the U.S. Is that just me not understanding what's going on in the world, or is that somewhat true? Or can you tell us your story?
Well, it's very true, to be honest with you, because whilst we followed a more kind of primal paleo lifestyle for a fair few years now, it's something that, that most of the guys that we followed, especially initially, like Mark Sisson, Rob Wolf, people like that, are obviously from the US. But in the UK, it's only recently it's become popular, but this is where we've kind of built our following, so to speak. And I suppose that we only started to get heard of in the States when the book launched in, when was it?
September.
It was last month, wasn't it? Yeah, just last month.
Yeah, thanks.
So yeah, we're very new to the States.
Well, cool. I'm happy to play a role in introducing you. And I'm curious as to being from the UK, my podcast co-host, Carrie Brown, is delightful. She's from the UK. And I'm curious as to when it comes to this whole food, primal, just eating things you could find directly in nature movement. Have you, what's going on in the UK? Is it different than it is in the US? I know you work closely with Mark Sisson. So have you seen some disconnects or differences in the approach?
No, we pretty much really similar to you guys in that we're just trying to get a message out there to people that the further away they move from nature and what they eat, basically the more unhealthy or the fatter they become. So, and again, over here there is a sort of quite a big following for the primal movement, but it's very specific, and it's actually being grown in gyms generally, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's where you're seeing it's actually personal trainers that are tending to get their clients following this sort of mode of eating, whole foods diet, whatever you want to call it. But we wanted to sort of reach out. We are actually based in a gym, obviously, as personal trainers, but we wanted to reach out and sort of get friends, family, neighbors, work colleagues, all listening to people about, sort of what we call fitter food or primal nutrition. And that's why we wrote the book, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and how did you personally, so you mentioned you're obviously fitness professionals. How did you get so plugged into this? And maybe I always like to hear people's story of what did you do before this and what turned you on to this?
Well, basically before, I'm the one that's a bit of the nutrition geek, and then I just tend to rabbit in Matt's ear all day long.
I just do as I'm
and before I actually used to work in the food industry for some big corporations, looking at things like calories on menus and things like that. Really, it was quite an interesting job. It was in sort of food law and hospitality, but. And I was very much sort of under the influence of the government and thought that everything should be low fat and would things like cereal and whole grain toast and And then after a while, when I actually became a personal trainer, it was actually another trainer in the gym who I was watching training one day, and he just looked absolutely awesome. It looked really different from when I'd seen him last, and he was training really hard. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Go out and buy one book. It's called The Paleo Solution by Rob Wolf." And that sort of started me off on the journey. I brought that book, and that led me to other books, and obviously sort of Primal Blueprint, and all the great sort of paleo primal guys out there. And that was it, really. There was no looking back, was there? Once you see that difference in everything, training and body composition and mindset, it was life changing, wasn't it?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the hardest thing with our clients, with our friends and our family, is that it's actually persuading them, if you like, to make these changes for a considerable amount of time, like at least 2 weeks, just to actually experience the benefits. Because, we know that the whole paleo primal thing is it's very, very different to what most people do. But we just like people to give it the benefit of the doubt and give it a try. And if they stay on it long enough, they get the benefits, and then they can actually see where we're coming from.
I love that. Keris, when you were speaking, you used a phrase which you may have not used intentionally, but it sparked a little thought bubble in my mind. And that was like, one, I love that you guys, you kind of tag team this and you both bring your unique insight into the situation. But Keris, when you were telling your story, you mentioned, you picked up Rob Wolf's book, and then you read other books by the guys in this area. And I'm curious because historically, or if you look at just market data, females comprise 80+% of the diet, nutrition, wellness market. But if you look at the primal paleo movement, a lot of the let's call them influencers are male. Why do you think that is? I know this has nothing to do with your book, but I'm curious.
Do you know what? Because I would say the nature of the nutrition itself probably appeals a lot more to guys, and actually scares a lot of women. I know I took a little bit of convincing, and it's only because I'm quite passionate in this area that I went and read around everything. It sort of went against everything I believed about how women should eat. I thought red meat was unhealthy, all these eggs, all this fat, I'd been sort of indoctrinated to think it should be, as I said, low fat and cereals and whole grains and more veg. And if anything, almost vegetarian was healthier to me before that. And I think, it's also, I suppose I'm not going to say that. I was going to say it's very science-based, and maybe it's because men are just more interested in sort of science. I'm not really sure. That's a bit of a generalization. I might get shot for saying that. But I know women are our hardest market, really, to convince and convert, aren't they?
Well, I don't know. I mean, because this is, I suppose, this is a man's perspective now. I guess, like, my view would be that if you look at a lot of diets that are out there that are kind of got a bigger female following, so to speak, I think they're the kind of things that if you kind of put that in front of a guy, he'd probably think this is just a fad. It's a faddy diet. It's a quick fix, blah, blah, blah. Whereas I think that's the thing that actually appeals to women. Yeah. Women do want a quick fix. They want this kind of, I can lose a boatload of fat in just 14 days. Brilliant. Whereas men are a bit kind of more skeptical, I think. So if they can see something that's a bit more of a long-term primal kind of change, then maybe that would be of a greater interest to them. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I'm not sure I agree with it, but it makes sense. Well, no, I mean, I do think it's a curious paradox, because I mean, maybe one thing is this idea of just like eating raw meat, and it seems more masculine, but we know that that's not actually what. I mean, I've seen like a Nell Stevenson, who paleoista Lauren Cordain's protege. She goes out of her way to say this is not about eating raw meat, and people, like, when people mock the paleo movement, they make it seem like it's this very animalistic, masculine thing. And I just thought it was fascinating because, like, your guys' book doesn't do that at all. I mean, in fact, it seems that you're trying to make it a bit more, this is about food, this is about your family, this is about, all that emotional importance and deeper significance that food has in our life. in a lot of ways, I mean, call that masculine, call that feminine, call that whatever. I mean, it's just truth, right? Food is about so much more than just science. And I think your guys' book does a really good job of just showing how delightful and delicious just eating food can be. And that seems like that's really what we need in terms of breaking down any gender or mainstream versus niche barriers. What do you think?
Yeah, I would also say I think there has to be, what we wanted to do was put forward a nice sort of convincing argument that wasn't patronizing and also wasn't too sort of, dogmatic, because I think one thing I would say about women is they're so strongly influenced by the diet industry and by the food industry through magazines and word of mouth. Friends, sort of mentioning what's worked for them really seems to make other women, sort of follow suit. And it is such a shame. And so what we wanted to do was just sort of say, take colourful pictures of the recipes, show how healthy these foods could be, how quick and easy they could be, and hope that it just appealed to everyone, men and women. But as I sort of mentioned before, women have been sort of our hardest converts, haven't they? And that's why we've put a little bit of science in there about, you don't need to worry about red meat too much and fat and eggs and things like that. And a lot of the science is showing it's really not what we thought it was anymore.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to put, getting back to what you were saying earlier in terms of, it sometimes may seem that a female is more interested in this sort of a quick fix in terms of fat loss. But I think you can also see the same thing in terms of men, in terms of quick fix, in terms of muscle gain, basically. And what I think that might be a representation of is the more societal pressure you have placed upon you to look a certain way, the more you might start to feel desperate and say, oh my God, like I've tried everything. And females will often say, I've tried everything to lose fat. Men will say, I've tried everything to gain muscle. And neither one of them are accomplishing their goals. And because of that, they fall victim to these gimmicks and quick fix approaches, which for both of those, building muscle and burning fat, if people would just eat natural, nutrient dense, whole foods found directly in nature, that both in the short term and in the long term, they'd be better off, right?
Oh, God, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I think what you mentioned there as well is long term. And what we do try and explain to people is there is no, it shouldn't be quote unquote a diet that you do something, for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever, and then come and return to eating how you did before. That's, this should be something that you approach as a lifelong plan, as it were, and how you should always aim to eat for the rest of your life for optimal health.
And what would you say that the paleo and primal movement and even Whole Foods has seen just phenomenal growth? I mean, I was actually talking with your buddy, Mark Sisson, the other day, and he talked about when his blog got started, there was something like 6 or 7 paleo blogs, and now there's something like 6,000 or 7,000. And so and of those 6,000 or 7,000 public paleo people, only a handful have books. So what is the unique Keris and Matt take on the paleo primal lifestyle?
Well, I mean, thing is, when we kind of initially turned to paleo primal, we too had our barriers, we worked long hours, we started early, we got home late, which most people share the same problem, nowadays. So for us, mainly, it was that we kind of gave a real person's view in just how you can incorporate that lifestyle, that way of eating into, this so-called, like busy lifestyle where we don't have time to cook, don't have time to eat nutritionally dense foods, etc. And to be honest, I mean, the book itself, we always speak about this, was a complete accident, if you like, because originally just working with clients on a day-to-day basis who, our clients vary from obviously men, women, young, old. Some people want to gain muscle. Some people have got a substantial amount of body fat to lose. Their goals are very, very different. Therefore, their needs are different. But ultimately, most of them had the same excuses and reasons as to why they couldn't follow the prescribed diet. So originally, it was just going to be a little bit of a booklet with a few recipes to get them going and answering kind of like common FAQs and and problems or barriers, so to speak. But I mean, I'm sure you've had this, that sometimes when you start writing, 20 pages soon turns into 200, and next thing you know, you're like, how the hell's that happened? And we had a book on our hands. So for us, when we wrote the book, once we should I say when we actually decided it was going to be a book rather than a flyer, we wanted to give a kind of really simple, easy to understand approach, and actually show people that don't be intimidated by paleo or primal eating. It's not really that complicated. In fact, it's actually, once you know the principles, it's pretty damn simple. And we wanted that to come across in the book, that if you had a room full of personal trainers, old ladies, men, women, whatever, each of them could pick up the book and get value from it. We didn't really have a target market in mind, so to speak, but we just wanted it that someone could pick it up, put it down and think, oh, okay, I feel quite inspired now to go home and cook some really good food that, they may well be surprised tastes pretty damn good, as well as being good for them.
And I say that the other thing we made sure of, because I'm not that great at cooking and I have no patience in the kitchen. That's definitely the chef.
That's my job.
So we decided minimal ingredients. So we just kept cutting down on the recipes, the steps involved and the ingredients, so that it just became like 3 or 4 quick steps, and most of the stuff people would tend to have in their cupboards on a weekly basis as well, wasn't it? So that was our thing as trainers working long hours. We always had to have quick, simple recipes.
Yeah, we didn't want it to be like ingredients that people would just constantly having to keep rushing out to get. It'd be things that chances are they probably already have in their cupboard.
Yeah, Keris and Matt and listeners, I can speak to this looking at the book here. I think one of the things that I really appreciate about this work is my podcast co-host always teases me because she's a formally trained chef. So, she can just do these amazing things with food, and she mocks my approach in the kitchen as more of assembly. She says, Jonathan, you don't cook, you assemble. But I know there's a lot of assemblers out there. And I think for all of the assemblers out there, this book, I'm actually, I'm not a huge fan of cookbooks and recipes and such like that, but you are being absolutely fair that in terms of the number of ingredients you need and the number of steps you need to take something that now will look more appetizing than I got to tell you anything I've cooked for the past 3 weeks. This is a pretty awesome resource, and it also does a great job of showing the diversity of it's definitely living a paleo, primal, whole foods, nutrient dense lifestyle. I mean, you need to look no further than Keris and Matt's book, The Paleo Primer, to see that comfort foods, burgers, breakfast, sides, salads, condiments, main dishes, desserts, snacks. This is not about depriving oneself. It's simply about, it seems, making smart substitutions. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think one thing I learned with clients is they'd often sort of come back to Matt or I and say, oh, I just can't do this way of eating that you've recommended. I just can't do it. And I would be a little bit, we've been doing it for a couple of years, and I would keep saying, why? What's the problem? And they'd say, oh, I just don't know what to cook. Or when I have friends over, it's really embarrassing that I have to do healthy food. And so we sort of thought, let's start to show people, just how tasty and amazing the recipes can be. And a big thing was getting traditional British dishes and just giving them a healthy twist. So using cauliflower mash on a shepherd's pie was one. And then Matt's done his Scotch egg, which is quite a traditional British. It's normally a deep fat fried. It's normally deep fat fried, isn't it, with breadcrumbs. And we just bake them in the oven with a few ground almonds instead. And that's been a real winner for us, hasn't it?
That's huge. I've actually got a plan to start a Scotch egg revolution. But I don't know how that will take off in the States, because I don't think you guys have Scotch eggs over there, do you?
No, we do
now, of course.
No, we have no Scotch eggs, but we can certainly appreciate the global need for eating whole natural foods. And I just think it's so great that we can customize all of these things. Like, I'm hoping we can even see some Asian cultures start to adopt, here's how to do this versus that, because food is so culturally important and so emotionally appealing that this has been my big learning over the past 2 years, as Mr. Science guy. You can beat someone over the head all day, every day, and twice on Sunday with science. But when it comes to food, there's a lot more going on than just science. So that's why I'm appreciative of people like you and books like the Paleo Primer, because if you want to tap into your animal brain a little bit more and the emotional side of eating, pick this book up, flip through it, and if you can legitimately say this way of eating is bland, boring, or hard, I just don't think you can. So I very much appreciate your guys' effort, because this is a compelling work. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
That really means a lot, mate, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, Keris and Matt, what is next for you in this journey to help, for lack of better terms, heal the world?
Well, we've got quite a lot on the go, actually. We've been really, really pleased with the feedback we've had from both the UK version and the US version of the book. We feel very humbled by that, and it's inspired us to write more. So we've got a Christmas ebook that we're currently writing, which is I suppose a survival guide of Christmas. So people can get through the festive period without piling on a load of weight and then feeling pretty crappy come January. So we're working on that at the moment. That's going to be released in a few weeks' time. But the big thing that we're kind of focusing on at the moment, and this is something we realized a few months ago, was that if we wanted to truly help as many people as we possibly can, which is what we've always wanted to do since we set out, was we needed to develop a much bigger online presence, because, that's the only way we're going to kind of branch out and reach, people all over the world. So with that, we've got quite a few online programs going on right now. Some are 28-day Kickstarter plans, which we call it a Kickstarter because we don't believe in 28-day transformations. We've got something at the moment called a 28-day fat loss Kickstarter, which, the name says it all, really, that for 28 days we change people's meal plans, big focus on lifestyle too, because as you know, it's not all about just what you eat. So we put a massive emphasis on getting some good quality sleep, producing cortisol, etc. And that's proving really, really successful. And there's quite a big demand for that now, isn't there?
Yeah, we also get them. They all have to host a Fitter Food dinner party whilst they're on the plan, and cook for friends and family, a starter, main and dessert, and then post the pictures up and share them. And that's been really, really good fun for us, hasn't it? Seeing everybody.
Well, the engagement's been amazing, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of them said how their friends and family didn't believe that it was healthy food because it tasted so good.
Well, I love it. Well, Keris and Matt, where can we go on? I mean, obviously the book is called The Paleo Primer. I'm sure we can get more information on that on Amazon and everywhere books are sold. But where can we go online to learn more about these programs you're describing?
Well, we've got. You can either jump onto our Facebook page, which is Fitter Food. It's the one that's got just over 2,000 likes. 12,000. My bad. I'm not doing myself good justice there. 12,000 likes, because I know someone else has set up a Facebook page with the same name, but it's not got as many likes. So everything that pretty much goes on our website to do with these programs and future projects pretty much goes onto the Facebook page anyway. So it's just Fitter Food. Or our website at the moment is fitterlondon.co.uk, because that's actually where it all started. Was with our our group training side of things, and then Fitter Food branched out from there. But both Fitter Food and Fitter London run from the same website at the moment, because we are developing the ultimate nutrition hub as we speak, aren't we?
Yeah.
The ultimate. Well, we'll certainly have to have you back on the show when you successfully release the ultimate nutrition hub, because that sounds quite compelling. I love it.
Well, expectations now.
Yeah.
I know. Well, Keris and Matt, this is absolutely fabulous. I so appreciate you sharing your time with us today. Again, friends, the book is called The Paleo Primer. And if you have anyone who's just like, meh, that sounds bland or boring or hard, pick up a copy of this book, because it is the counterpoint to any of that. And again, our guests are the delightful Keris Marsden and Matt Whitmore. Again, the book is The Paleo Primer. Keris and Matt, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us, mate. It's been great.
Thanks a lot.
Listeners, I hope you enjoy this wonderful conversation as much as I did. Again, the book, The Paleo Primer, the guests, Keris Marsden and Matt Whitmore. And remember, this week and every week after, eat smarter, exercise smarter, and live better. Chat with you soon.
Wait, don't stop listening yet.
You can get fabulous free SANE recipes over at carriebrown.com.
And don't forget your 100% free eating and exercise quick start program, as well as free, fun, daily tips delivered right into your inbox at bailorgroup.com. That's BAILOR group.com.